Welcome to the TribalHub webinar, Improving Family Services with a Modern Housing Application, brought to us by Arctic IT. Thank you guys for being our partner on this. My name is Michelle Bouchard. I'll be the webinar host for today. We are here with Bryan Schmidt and Matt Borkowski, both of Arctic IT. The session today will be recorded and you'll receive a copy of that tomorrow. It'll also be hosted on TribalHub.com. So when you get that email, feel free to share it with anybody on your team who may have missed out on attending today. A couple of top learning objectives to take away from the webinar, something to think about while you're listening to the presentation today. We want to learn how to understand the current challenges of many other tribal housing departments, and also think about how you can transform your manual processes to a tribal housing application specifically made for tribes. During the presentation, make sure you send those questions through on the chat, or you can use the Q&A feature. Either one of those will get to us. And a couple things happening in TribalHub world. Our conference is coming up in about a month. San Diego, if you haven't registered, there's still time. Also, we have a new merch shop, which has some cool swag if you're interested in that. You can find that link on our website. And with that, Bryan, I'm going to turn it over to you to start our presentation.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
And thank you, Michelle, for kicking us off. And it feels like this has been a long time coming. I mean, at Arctic IT, we've been working with tribal technology space, for almost 20 years here. And in that amount of time, I can't tell you how many times we've had discussions with housing departments and those things. And it's been very difficult, to get modern technology. And this is something we've been wanting to do for a long time. And we're excited to get to that point, to use a lot of our experience, things that we have with our tribal platforms to really bring some modern application to the tribal housing space. So thank you all for joining us today. As Michelle said, my name is Matt Borkowski, and I've been with Arctic IT for 17 years, and have spent most of that working in and amongst the tribal technology space, and excited to be working with my colleague, Bryan Schmidt, who, even though he was saying he's in Fargo, North Dakota, and I'm down in just outside of Austin, Texas, we both actually have our hometown roots in very small town, Botno, North Dakota, where I used to grow up fishing with Bryan's older brother. So it's been fun that years and years later, we're working together from opposite sides of the country, but to be back in the North Dakota hometown.
Yeah.
And Bryan, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Bryan Schmidt. I'm the principal solution architect. So I've been with the organization about 10 years now, and pretty much working with tribal governments the whole time. One thing is I was one of the original architects for the tribal platform solution, and part of that grew out of the looking at some of the best practices that we saw in many different tribes that we were working with, and said, hey, let's take some of those best practices and build that into a cohesive solution and provide an operational application platform that can help tribal governments transform their operations. So this is yet the latest application that we're adding to the suite. So I'm really excited to show this off to everyone today.
All right, thank you, Bryan. And as we look at what today's presentation is going to look like, just start introducing a little bit about who we are at Arctic IT, but then move into the main focus of today. And that truly is, how can this latest technology and tribal platforms really benefit the tribal housing departments around the country? We'll talk through some of the organizational challenges currently that we all face, why technology can really help with that, what that might look like, and then dive into the application itself, where Bryan is very well versed and a subject matter expert will be walking through to help understand truly how this technology might really start helping to reshape how you interact with your members and improve your experience, not only your membership, but also your housing staff, to keep things running efficiently and increase that engagement across the board. And one thing we're very proud of at Arctic IT is that we know no matter what you do, picking the specific technology is only half the battle, right? You can pick the right technology, but if you're not trained on how to use it well, if it's not configured properly, and it isn't supported well going forward, that the technology isn't going to achieve what you need, right? So at Arctic IT, we pride ourselves in being that go-to technology partner in the tribal space. So not only do we help with bringing the right solutions, but that expertise that we have across the board helps make sure that your team is fully trained, that the solution continues to work as well as it can, and that it is enhanced to adjust to the changing landscape of what it's like to work in housing. And we are very proud of our Alaska Native heritage. We are Alaska Native Corporation owned by the Doyon Limited Alaska Native Corporation. So being tribally owned just gives us that much more pride. And we're very proud to be working with and honored to be working with fellow organizations in the tribal technology space. And while we've talked about our experience doing it for quite some time, we also have customers and work with tribal organizations and tribal governments around the country, spanning from Alaska, where we were born, down to all throughout the lower 48. So we're excited for the opportunity to continue to expand our technology to work with more organizations across the country. But now, when we take a step back and we start focusing on technology itself, you can't really understand how technology can make a big impact without looking at the truth of the current landscape. And no matter who we're talking with, almost all housing departments that we talk with fall into these sorts of issues, just in operational challenges. And a big piece of that is, as we're interacting with and helping our membership use the resources that the tribe has to offer the best, engage with the different services, and make the best use for their family, that cross-departmental collaboration becomes more and more important, right? Where how many times have we had where each department has their own spreadsheets with the same tribal member information in it? If someone needs to update their address of where they currently are as they're trying to move into a new place, then once they're placed in a new home, making sure that address gets rolled out to the other departments, and that the information that needs to be where you need to have collaboration on can be easily shared and maintained and reported on, but then keeping the confidential information that needs to stay just within your department, the ability to do that as well. It is so important that as we all try to work with fewer and fewer resources and staff while meeting increased expectations, that we have a solution that can help us do that. Similar is the digital service expectations. And Michelle was just talking about working with her tribe to get a fishing license and just how difficult that can be at times. But when we think about how rarely we go into banks ourselves, or there's been such a heightened expectation that when we need to interface with an organization, especially one as impactful in a tribal member's life as the tribal government themselves, more and more there's that expectation to be able to interact with, submit their documents, see the status of things, get feedback and communication all digitally. Right? And as we look further and further into how do we engage with the younger generations in our tribe, the more that we require them to fill out pieces of paper or documents and mail them in, or come in physically and go to multiple departments to fill things out, the less and less we will be able to interact with our younger generations. And so doing so, moving for that digital service expectation has never been as high as it is now. And it's not going to dial back. We're going to continue to beat those expectations, and we need to have the technology to help us do that. But along those lines, if your software isn't helping you with those day-to-day tasks that you need, how are you maintaining and processing transactions through, seeing applications come in, and how do you then interact to make sure that you can get people placed properly once approved and you have all the documentation in there, right? Those processes that in the past have continued to be paper upon paper or manually updating spreadsheets, and a combination of all that in place, that becomes more and more of a challenge as we've seen with the increased needs for affordable housing across the country. And that will continue to be the case from everything that we've seen. So being able to have a technology that automates those processes and makes everyone more efficient and gets that data more visible so we can see where we need to go with those processes is paramount to what we do. Right? But all of that doesn't really matter if we don't feel like our systems and our data is secure. And beyond that, all of your information for your membership applications, for getting things approved and your wait list and getting folks placed and getting all that documentation, if you're not sure that data is not only secure, but that it's yours, no matter what application you're using, that sovereignty of your data and your information Your tribal members expect that of the information that they give you. So you need to make sure that you're on a platform that secures your information, and that you make sure at no point does that data leave and become part of some external company's marketing plans. So when Arctic IT was really looking holistically at these sort of operational challenges and deciding what do we need to go forward when we're building our technology to make sure that we can meet these and other operational challenges, that led us to the Microsoft Cloud and the Microsoft platform. So the terminology for that is the Microsoft Power Platform. That is a Microsoft Cloud, a completely secure solution set that allowed us to take the functionality that we know is needed by different tribal departments, tribal housing included now in this, and be able to build out that technology, build out the functionality on the Power Platform provided by Microsoft. So that I'll not only make sure that those digital service expectations can be met, that people can access the information they need from the devices that they need, where they are, and that things are updated frequently, that security is held paramount in all that they do. So you're never working on the 3-year-old technology. You're always up to date, always secure, and that you can interact with and use that with other Microsoft Cloud applications, like most commonly email and Microsoft 365 and Excel and those things, while still keeping that fully secured, encrypted, and confidential throughout the process, and continuing to get enhancements as easily and seamlessly, so that as functionality requirements change, as maybe laws and regulations change and what you need to track for these grants and various things changes, you'll be able to get those enhancements in the system and move forward easily and securely. Then always making sure that you're up to date and having that ongoing support, that when you have questions, you can get them answered. If things aren't working right, that we can get that fixed very quickly for you. All of that and those operational challenges that we just discussed really led us to tribal platforms being built on the Microsoft Power Platform. Now, as we said, the Power Platform that our tribal platforms are built upon are in that Microsoft Cloud. And sometimes when we start talking about the cloud and what that means, truly in this case, that means that Microsoft's data centers around the country are being utilized to house the applications and that data, fully secured, encrypted specifically for your tribe. And that can feel a little bit different or scary, but the thing to remember is that that you wouldn't be the first doing that. There are over 350 tribal tenants in the cloud, with 66 different tribal organizations that are using different Dynamics and Power Platforms applications, like tribal platforms, as we talked about, with hundreds of thousands of employees utilizing the Microsoft Cloud securely. And not only securely without data breach incidents, but also fully compliant with data sovereignty, and including times that that data sovereignty from Microsoft's cloud has been held up in court to ensure that your tribal data is your tribal data, not Microsoft's and not anyone else's. But with that, as we've talked about the platform itself, why Microsoft technology itself is perfect for helping to address those operational challenges, I'm excited to turn things back over to Bryan here to really walk us through the details of tribal platforms and tribal housing on tribal platforms.
Great, thank you, Matt. Thank you for that overview, and that I hope you really connect with those scenarios of why we've actually chosen Microsoft as a platform to build these solutions and provide these services to your members. So as to add on to that, tribal platforms is really a suite of applications that are targeted at specific departments within your tribal government to serve different purposes, but yet work together to provide that centralized member master database. Typically in the past, many enrollment departments use Progeny for their member master database, but that is not integrated, or it's not allowing your different departments to work together and collaborate. So that's one of the big reasons why we're seeing tribes adopting tribal platforms to collect all that information, secure it, provide what's called role-based security for your different departments within your organization that may need access to the data, but you can very carefully define what they can and cannot see within that member record to preserve the security and the privacy of your member data. That is probably one of the most important assets of the tribal government. So that now all of a sudden, once you have that in a secure database, you can start improving service delivery and providing applications, online applications through a portal, and assessing who is receiving services, who is not receiving services, and be able to provide some of those outreach capabilities for your team to be able to see and maximize the benefits that may be available. But being built on the Microsoft platform allows us to provide these workflow scenarios and the business rules to enforce the policies and procedures that your tribal government and your council have set in place to make sure that the monies and the services are being delivered to the people that are eligible. The services aren't being abused or being provided to somebody that's not eligible. So it's really important for you to understand that Arctic IT is a security first organization, and that's what we really place a heavy importance on, making sure that we're protecting your data and helping you serve your members more effectively. So a little deeper dive into the different applications within this suite. As you can see here, we start with that enrollment, as I mentioned before, but we've got a family wellness application for this family and child services team, so that you can do that case management for all your different members and what they may use. And we'll talk a little bit more about the portal, but that is your member interface to be able to connect with the tribal government, access services, post updates and applications and that kind of thing. Tribal Court is one of those applications that's a case management system for your judicial court case management and managing all the documents that go along with that for your team. And distribution payments, we made that term. Typically, tribes are using per capita distributions or general assistance distributions to your members. That's an automated tool that will help you manage and approve those payments and get those funds out to your members in an efficient way, correctly, and accurately. And then, of course, housing, which we're going to talk about more today. That's the latest application that we're adding to the suite to allow your team to manage the assistance, the properties, the units that you make available, and the applications that your members have for participation in the different programs you make available within your housing department. So the app itself, like I mentioned, this is for managing the assistance, whether it be tenant-based rental assistance, income-based assistance, but it's using it to manage the eligibility criteria for each of those programs, make sure that the people that are applying meet the criteria, and if they don't, you can auto deny those applications if they don't meet that criteria. But then, once somebody has been approved through that application process, now they've been placed in one of the units, you can create that lease agreement and manage the recertification of that lease, whether it's an annual or every other year process, to make sure that that individual is still eligible for that assistance that they may be receiving. And then, of course, if you do have tribally owned properties, you can work with your team to create work orders, inspections, and maybe the rent to own scenario for your members. So those are just a few scenarios of managing that. But then, managing the household, who is in that household, making sure that if there are members that are elder or disabled or meet certain criteria, that information can be collected and then tracked so that you're making sure that if you've got people that are vulnerable or at high risk of becoming homeless, that you're making sure that they bubble to the top of the list and get them placed so that they aren't running into a really terrible situation for them in their personal life. So, and then being able to create those programs so that as you're receiving funds from either the tribal government or you may be receiving funds from the federal government for these assistance programs, you can create that budgetary action or record, which then you can relate all the different applications and leases and payments to that program, so that it can help assist you and your team collecting or creating the reports that you need to generate for those programs or for those grants that you've received monies from, so that you're complying with the requirements of those grant funding agencies. And then, of course, managing the wait list and scoring for those individuals that if they're on a wait list for different programs, you can use this as a way to track that detail. And why is this important for your housing staff? So it's important to manage the accuracy. Make sure that, if enrollment is updating, a status of an individual, maybe an individual has become disabled, or their age has changed, where now they may be become an elder, so that they're now eligible for programs. All that information that's being regularly updated by enrollment is now immediately available to the housing department. No need to make that phone call every time you see an application or a new unit becomes available to re-verify that the details of their record is accurate. The teams are working together seamlessly to make sure that the data is accurate and up to date. And then managing budgets, so you could see those programs, manage the burn down. So as you're dispersing funds from those different programs, you can see those fund availability. And when the funds are exhausted, now you can make that decision whether, okay, is the tribe going to continue to add some more money to keep this program going, or is it going to put the program on hold so that it can stop the distribution of funds for those programs. But it gives you that capability to manage those budgets and make proper decisions in real time as the applications and the distribution of funds are going on as over the year. And then increasing efficiencies. You really want to be able to automate those service requests or those applications for services, reducing that paper trail, creating online forms for you to be able to collect all the needed information, marry that up with the enrollment details so that you don't have to duplicate entry of data. I mean, I've heard stories of and housing people going over to enrollment and borrowing the folder of the individual, and all of a sudden it gets lost in a stack over in the housing department, and now nobody can find their member record. And it's a common scenario when we're using paper-based systems. So let's use this as an opportunity to make sure that that chance of losing data or misplacing information is eliminated or at least greatly reduced. And then, as I mentioned, the robust reporting, the ability to do analytics to see how many people are on the wait list, how long have they been there, what is their statistics of the people on the wait list. There's great capabilities within the application to be able to slice and dice this information and create analytical reports that you can use to make decisions.
Bryan, when we think about that, increasing of process efficiencies, I think we could safely say that in all the years we've talked with tribal housing departments, especially recently, we've never had a department lead or someone tell us that they feel like they've got enough people to really do everything that they wish they could, right? They're and with the increased demand for affordable housing, just going up every year. Not only do we need increased efficiencies to do more with less, right, but also to be able to retain our best employees, right? If we're using modern tool that just put the data that we need in front of us and allows us to move through the tedious aspects of our job more effectively, it just makes our job more enjoyable. Right? It gives us more time to interact with our membership, to talk with and understand their needs, maybe help refer them to other departments that can help their family situations that they might be in, and really be more holistically involved in benefiting our membership rather than just processing paper, right? So not only do we think about just trying to be more efficient in our jobs, but thinking through enjoying our jobs more and giving us more time to interact with and just truly provide better service and engagement to our membership as a whole is such a key piece to it that sometimes we miss when we just think about wanting to make our jobs more efficient. And that's one thing that I love about our tribal platforms, that I truly believe it helps free up that time make things just better across the board. So thank you.
Yep, great point, Matt. Great point. Thank you for adding that. So now I want to talk a little bit about, migrating or data migration. Virtually every project that we engage with different tribal organizations, they're probably in one of these three categories where they're working from paper documents or paper forms that require members to fill out. I've heard of one tribe that has literally a 21-page application for housing, and it's a daunting task for members to fill out all that information. And sometimes the members have to drive long distances to go submit that documentation, only to find out there was a couple pages missing or some form that didn't get filled out properly, and now they've got to go back home to get that information. That's a very painful scenario for members when you're working with paper documents. So let's look at ways that we can, eliminate those paper documents and forms and bring that to an easier to use process for your team members. And obviously, from a migration, many, we see housing departments very frequently working from spreadsheets of data that where they have the wait lists and the applicants and all that information being stored on spreadsheets. It works, it does. But a lot of times it's error prone, or that somebody makes an inadvertent edit or deletes that spreadsheet, and all of a sudden, what do we do? How do we recover that? So it's a great tool that has probably served many departments for a long time, but it just needs a better way to manage that. So it's not uncommon to see departments using that. I've even actually been to housing departments, and some of you may do this too, but they actually have a whiteboard in the office where they keep track of the work orders that are being, set up for, hey, going to so-and-so's house to fix their front door, going to others' house, their water heater broke and it needs to be replaced. So it's literally that hit list of work orders on a handwritten work board or a work order sheet that could be automated to allow your field tech staff to go out in the field and work with the members and resolve those scenarios more efficiently than they have in the past. And of course, some teams use existing legacy on-premise applications. So if you got one of those, we can absolutely work with you to migrate that data from that legacy application to tribal platforms to create these housing leases and applications and so forth. So we've seen all three of those scenarios, and we'll absolutely work with you with that. And then, of course, the community portal. This is a key aspect where those users can submit those requests, submit those applications, and eliminate the need for in-person visits so that your government staff can respond to those requests effectively. And we've actually seen scenarios where some organizations or some tribes have required the paper submissions, and you get overwhelmed with a number of applications that they receive, and they just can't process them fast enough because of all the paper applications. So this could, using a portal, the technology like this, that people can self-serve and submit those applications, and now your staff can be focused on processing those applications and reviewing the accuracy and so forth without having to rekey or type in that information over again because they've got these long forms that need to be made electronic. So that's an important change. Now, the
one thing
go ahead, Matt.
Bryan, I like how we mentioned there about it configured to meet their needs. That in that regard, the idea is it might make sense to slowly have some things available in a secure portal for your members to log into. Other things, maybe there are reasons for a while to just slowly roll those out. So while the portal can be very effective in helping in those things, we'll make sure that we, if helping you deploy something like that we're meeting the specific services and the needs and the programs that you want to make on the portal, while still, if there are great business reasons to keep some things more just in-house, that you can absolutely do that as well.
Yep. Great point. Thank you for that. So, and again, one of the reasons that we recommend, you partnering with Arctic, a company like Arctic IT, is that not only do we deploy the application and tribal platforms, but we also support it. So we provide that application support for, phone call, email, or through the portal to be able to submit those requests for help. We give you the account management for status meetings, additional ongoing training for your team, so that as new housing staff come on board, you can either through watching videos or in online training, we can continue to build those skills or reinforce the skills of your team that come onto your housing department. And then we'll have an ongoing strategy session with you to make sure that you're getting the most out of the technology. And if there's changes that are needed, we can work with you to deploy that. And then, of course, licensing and making sure all the different aspects of the solution are working the way you expect, and giving you that full upgrade and update support that your team may need. All right, so we've spent a lot of time hacking on slides, so it's time to show you the application. So let's give you that first sneak peek of our solution. So you can see here that when I click on this, we've got the enrollment. We've got different applications that are available for your members to log into. But I'm logging in as an administrator right now, so I get to see everything. But in your role, when you log in, remember what I said, that role-based security would say you're a housing staff member. It's going to show you this application, and when you log in, you're going to get the chance to see this on your desktop. Now, key point to make is you'll notice that I'm running in a browser, so there's no application that you need to install on your local device. So this could be running on a laptop or a tablet or a mobile phone. And we've actually seen some tribes where they'll take a laptop out to a community event. Let's say you've got a powwow event or some community celebration. You can actually set up a booth and allow your members to interact with you as a housing team and be able to review or provide status updates for your members if that's important. So you can take this technology with you as long as you've got an internet-enabled device to be able to work from. And the data is secured because I'm not copying any of that private data down to my local machine. I'm keeping it all in the secured cloud so that, let's say, for example, this laptop got destroyed or stolen for some reason. There's no personal information that was compromised because that laptop was misplaced. So that's an important element for you to understand that's a risk that it does happen with on-premise systems where that has been eliminated because we're keeping that data in a secured environment off the machine itself and accessible from any place, anytime you need access to that data. So when I log in, I typically am presented with a dashboard, and this is a very configurable dashboard. So I can create one view for housing or the staff members that need to be able to review the applications that have come in or those new applications. Or as a supervisor, I might want to process grievances or manage how many units are either available or are being managed by the tribe or recertification. So these are configurable, and you can actually create your own dashboards to organize this information in a way that you make sense for you and makes it most usable for yourself. And these are actually actionable dashboards, so I can click on these and it will filter the data by these charts and so forth that we show on this dashboard. And of course, there's the starting point for any of this is that list of contacts. So that list of contacts is really that shared list of member master records. So right now, again, like I said, I'm seeing all the contacts. But again, like we could see on enrollment, we can see I only want to see the members of the tribe that are living. So I can filter these. So in some legacy applications, this is a report that I need to go run. But here, this is a live query that's available to me, and it's running, and I can have hundreds of thousands of people in this list, and it will query this and show the data to me very, very fast. And I can filter and say, hey, I want to see somebody's come in for services and their last name is Schmidt. I can quickly search, or I want to search by Keeley, maybe search by first name, or I can do a search by maybe the last two digits of their, so I've probably 02, Yeah, see, it's picking up other numbers. So it's their address that's picking up O2. So you'll see how that search capability provides a great tool for you to be able to find all your member records and see that data in one consistent place. So it's important for you to understand that. And again, this is intended to be a record that is shared between enrollment and you. You may have read-only access to most of this, but in some cases, you may deploy this solution standalone. So you may want to be able to update your list of contacts directly. So it supports both different scenarios in how you manage this information. So one thing I want to point out, so we've got all their address information, other names, emergency contacts, monthly income and expense details. And this is typically a request that is on the application for housing. So they need to provide this income and expense. And this could be made available through the portal for the member to update themselves. And you've got other options to present, such as incarceration or relationships. That's important data to be able to show that. And now with this, we can actually use a concept called household to define, who is that head of household and what is the combined income of all the individuals in the household, whether they're dependent, what their age and status is, relationship to the head of household. And again, if you have decisions that need to be made, or you're trying to house the all the members of the household, I can capture all those details on one record. So I can summarize, how many people are in the household, how many minors, how many elders are in that household. Maybe they're vulnerable or not. You can capture that status of those individual members or roll that up onto the household and capture their current situation today. What are they living in today? And you could allow a member to update this information directly themselves through the portal so they can keep that data current. And if you need to be able to track their assets, again, this is on many applications, we see this as a table that they have to fill out. Well, rather than filling out that whole table of assets, allow them to update this information themselves on their profile so they can list, maybe their mobile home or their family car. I can see that information and allow them to maintain that going forward on one record. All right, so now I'm going to go back to contact. So now again, keep in mind that this is the shared information that may be visible to other departments within the tribal government. But now what we do is we drill into what we call a housing profile. And this is what we call a private record that is only visible to the housing team. So this can store some private information about the individual that may be applying for services that you don't want anybody else in the tribal government to see or understand maybe what their financial status is. You're collecting information about their bankruptcy, their criminal history, loan history, or fraud. This is a place to collect all those details. And that is very private information that your team maybe manages and maintains, but you don't want anybody other the government staff to view that detail. And then this is where that, from a perspective of the individual, I could see all the different housing applications that they may have submitted, what their status is. Maybe they were denied in the past, and there may be a reason why they were denied. So we can drill in and see those reasons, but I can see all the different applications for services. And then maybe, the different leases that were created for the individual over time. So I can see that, one, they submitted in 2022, and they moved from that unit to the other unit. I can see all that lease history in one pane of glass related to that individual. And then being able to see the housing assistance history as I create those payments, whether it be rental assistance or income-based assistance or homeowner assistance. I could see all those payments, how much those assistance were, and to which program it was related to. So I could see, or whether I paid the landlord on behalf of the individual. I could see all those payment requests related to that individual. That's an important element for you to see so that you can establish that eligibility for this family member, but yet keep that data private. And then such as this is so I can manage the communication. So I can, as I generate emails, either out to the individual or, Paul Michael Smith, as they reply to those emails and that information comes back in, I can capture that communication. But I can create phone calls, emails, tasks, other communications. There's even the ability to send and receive SMS text messages right from within the application. So there's great tools here to be able to communicate with your members right from within one pane of glass.
And when you think about that, Bryan, you think about how often have we had to say things to someone if they had a question for us about it. Say, oh, Bryan was working on your application. I'll have to wait till he's back from this weekend with his grandkids. We can get back to you next week. Thanks for calling, that sort of thing. Where now you could come in here and see those details and hopefully be able to answer that question right away, even if you haven't personally been working on this particular application, and give Mr. Schmidt here the answers that he needs to move on. And so it saves your whole team time because there's not multiple calls being answered, but you're also providing just better service and communication with your membership.
Yeah, absolutely. And either sending or receiving emails can be tracked in there. So now all of a sudden I can have that application, and I'm going to drill into one of those applications. I can see that communication history and ownership of this application. So you have a notice that there's an owner. This can be an individual owner or could be a team. So there's a notion of assigning this application to either me or a team or someone else. So let's say I'm going to go on vacation and I want Matt to follow up. I can reassign that. Or if we're on the same team, he can see this service request and process it if that question comes up. So I can track all that communication, everything related to this record very, very effectively. So you'll see that this is just an example of, when I pick the program, what we do is we show this ability for a quick view, and it's showing the eligibility criteria and showing some details of that program that may be relevant for that housing staff member to make a decision. So, and then of course, when I pick that housing applicant, I maybe see their current email, phone, contact information, and if they're vulnerable, I can list all that information. So now, again, by just picking that name, I'm showing that information on one page. So now I can quickly make that decision whether this individual may be eligible for the program that they've applied, and make that decision much more effectively. And then as part of that, this is where we collect all the application details. So in some cases, you may have a very long application, but a lot of it is really about the profile of the individual. Well, what if you say, okay, now the member is going to fill out that profile information separately, and now this page only is the specific information that the housing department needs to make a decision based on this person's eligibility for the program, whether they're elderly or displaced, or if they're in self-sufficiency. If they're not self-sufficient, then they may be eligible for these services. And of course, they can capture different statuses of their current housing situation, or if they're paying too much for their current housing. So this is where you collect all the different details. And again, this is an example of a housing application that we've seen from multiple different tribes. But if you've got other questions that need to be added to this, we can certainly configure this. And that's part of the reason we've chosen the Power Platform, because it's a very flexible tool that allows us to configure these forms to collect the information that may be unique to your tribe that you want to be able to manage and maintain. And then, of course, obviously making that decision. So you can use the tools or have some business rules implemented that help you calculate preference points based on criteria of what their family situation, and create a score so that now all of a sudden they can show up in that wait list based on that score, and helping your housing team make the decision to move this forward, whether it's approved, the date, or maybe it was denied or disqualified. And you can provide that rationale for why it was denied. And then if it is approved, now we're going to say, all right, we're going to specify the property and pick the units. So now you can have the individual units or create or select one of those units that might that are available. And because that's how it filters based on this property. It'll filter the available units on that property for me to place the individual. And now once that is, we pick that place, and we can use this for setting up a lookup reference to say, okay, what are my current fair market rent amounts for this specific region that this individual may be living in. Or, based on their family situation, they're your state, family of 4. So I can pick that. And here are my income limitations based on that. So now you can see how I can automate this process to set these and make this information available at their fingertips to be able to say, okay, my rental assistance limits for a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom is this amount. Now I can use this as a reference to help with that decision making and how I'm going to fund this individual to create that lease record and then track that. So you can maybe in this case, I'm picking on an older lease, but I can see that history of when they were there, maybe when inspections that were completed, the household information at the time that this lease was generated. So you can see I can collect all these details and then set recertification time so that if the lease term ends at a specific date, I can automate the renewal or the reminders for your team to follow up on this individual. So we can automate many of these processes. And then, of course, I know we're running out of time, but there's a capability to manage all the work orders and relate that to the individual units, and sometimes or track the inspections, whether it be a move-in inspection, move-out inspection. And these inspections can be capturing the time and the time that was spent, the outcome, whether it's pass or fail, or if there's a reinspection that is needed, and then being able to collect all the checklists. So your field tech staff that are performing these actions, they can go out and configure this list of the survey to answer all the questions so they can make sure that unit is ready for move-in for your individual. So it's a great way, and then change status of those units. So they may be a completed inspection and after a move out, and now they could say, yep, it's ready for the next move in. That status can change while that person is in the unit. And now all of a sudden that status change can trigger the staff that's back in the office to go, all right, I'm going to pick up the next person that's on the wait list for services and go ahead and process that and get them placed in that next unit. So that's a great way to manage this information and make it available for your members. So with that, I think we're almost at time. So I think Michelle, if there's some questions that people have asked in the chat of us, let's leave the last 10 minutes or so for members to pose questions.
Yeah, so I have a couple to start with here. The first one is asking, can you speak more as to how this can be used in conjunction with the my tribal platforms enrollment solution?
So great question. So in essence, what happens is as you have the enrollment team taking in that new contact or new member, let's say the Schmidt family has a new baby and they create that new, pending member because that was a scenario here, right? So this is maybe a child that was literally born in June, age is 0, they're on a minor, but what they're going to do, so I can see that they've got a pending member that's still going through the process to be accepted as a member, but they're probably still living in that household. So what they're doing is I'm adding this child to the household, but now all of a sudden I've got information as a housing staff that, okay, the household status is changing so that I can use that as a decision maker to decide if I'm going to place this individual or this family into this other unit. Same thing could be happening where you may have a mom and 2 children, and it might be a custody situation. We can enforce that scenario where if the one child is trying to be claimed in multiple households, enrollment says, nope, that child can only be claimed in one household. And we're enforcing that policy and that business rule so that the child isn't showing 2 different, the ex-spouses to be eligible for assistance that they shouldn't be eligible for. Only one should be able to receive that assistance. So we're allowing the teams to work together to keep that status information for each of these families and individuals current and accurate, and as changes happen, be able to react to that in real time.
And one other piece there that if you have a tribal enrollment application that you're using, their tribal platforms, and part of that, we have the distribution payments module there that maybe is for your per capita distributions or other pieces, where you've got that integration and interface with your accounting system for cutting the checks and keeping all of that secure on the finance side. Then we've also got that ability to continue to use that off of the payment requests if you need to cut checks or send payments to property owners, other things on behalf of your membership. As you're doing that, you can funnel all that through one secure integration piece that's tracked as part of that distribution payments to make sure that you've got the proper financial protections in place and the internal controls, while also just taking use of not having to build out multiple integrations into the same accounting system.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Great point, Matt.
All right. Next question asks, can you show an example of an online form that members can submit?
Sure. So I'll pop open the portal. So as an example, what we've done is, and this is just a different example, but I can create these forms as configurable, step by, or what we call multi-step forms or wizard-like forms. So I can create these applications and just imagine configuring these as a household, right? So I can pick that program. And again, here, this is education, but so I can fill in, and these could be online forms. And the first couple steps could be me validating my profile data, making sure that my household information, my income data is correct, all those steps, and just verifying that it's all correct. And then basically then having a couple pages for specific details that are on your housing application. And this may be a case where I could specify that I need to provide proof of registration, or a GPA, or a pay stub, or a proof of the lease agreement that I may have today. I can also allow your members to upload those documents right from here and attach that to the application right inside the online form. So this is just an example, but we can, and I can show how I can attest because I'm logged in as myself. I know that I'm, who I am, so I can support this notion of electronic signatures on this application. And when I submit this application form, it's been submitted, and now that will show up over on my application list in real time. So I could see those applications arrive overnight. So I could see that, these might be new, or I can see those ones that are approved. So I can see those statuses of each of those applications, and then process those new ones that arrive overnight, for example. So that's just a brief example of how we can use that, create that online form. And then not only that, as a member, I should come back here and let me click back here, education applications. And now I can see the status of that application. So I can click this and edit it. I can change something. I can add a comment to it. I need this ASAP. So I can upload more information, but now all of a sudden I can communicate with staff through these comments related to this application, and that can also become available on the back end side for the housing staff to be able to see. So this is a great tool for communication as an example of how you can submit these online forms.
I might personally recommend changing those North Dakota state applications to the University of North Dakota, but that's just a personal preference.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
And I think we have time for one last question I've got here. I just curious, what do you guys see, and what have you heard from your users as the biggest benefit of this platform over some of the others that maybe tribes on the call may be using?
So that the biggest benefit that I think we've seen is that allowing your different departments to work together and reducing that the instances of enrollment is kind of the heart of the whole tribal government, right? So they end up fielding lots of different calls of, hey, is so-and-so a member? What's their current status? Are they eligible for these such and such services? So you're trying to allow your staff to self-serve and answer questions on their own. and answer those questions in real time so that you aren't quite as dependent on the enrollment team. So you're reducing that call volume to where, okay, the calls that are made are legitimate, action is needed, so that you're allowing your teams to collaborate more effectively, get information that's real time, eliminating or reducing that risk of losing documents and shared content from a paper file, and honestly, the risk of ransom. Keeping the data in a secure repository. You may have these applications on premise on a local laptop or something like that, but I just heard a scenario yesterday from someone where they were in California and they are at risk because of wildfires. And they've had issues where they didn't have the backup and the disaster recovery, and they were worried about trying to protect their data. That's where a solution like this can help them keep that data. So if they need to evacuate and move their operations somewhere temporarily, they can still provide services to their members remotely because the data is secured in another area. So it's the collaboration, data protection, data availability and accessibility. Those are some really, really big game changers that we've seen with different tribes and being able to access their data, keep it secure, and provide services.
Yeah, that's awesome. Bryan and Matt, thank you guys so much for another amazing webinar. I love jumping on a call with you guys. I learned so much, and it's just such great information to see this, available to tribes. And, like you said, the collaboration piece is so good. I put your email addresses in the chat here. Oh, okay, good, Matt. You put the little, what is this? Okay. Well, I think that just went to us. I'm going to copy this and put it down so everyone can see it here. Oh, nope, that didn't work.
All that to be said, we're just like Michelle, we at Arctic IT are really excited for San Diego and TribalNet. We're going to be there here in just a little over a month. So we'll have a booth there. We'll be attending a lot of the sessions. So now that you've seen our handsome faces, track us down. We'd love to talk more about what your goals are with software and tribal technology, and specifically about housing as well.
Yes. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you again so much. Thank you everybody on the call, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.